few games define pixel-perfect platforming perfection on the NES as well as the original 6 Mega Man games. With iconic levels and bosses, fun weapons, to different strategies to tackle each game, Capcom's Mega Man is an essential series to own and play on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Since people have been playing Mega Man games for over 20 years, it means that almost everyone knows how they're supposed to play. You get used to how the Blue Bomber moves and how each touch of the controls will function. But Capcom decided it would be a great idea to bring the super fighting robot to a device without the comfort of actual buttons, without the speed and timing players spent decades getting familiar with, and maybe worst of all, without any real reason or purpose in doing so. This is something that no one was asking for. Mega Man on mobile. Released early on in 2017, the first 6 Mega Man games, originally all on the NES, are available on iOS and Android as separate games for about $2 a pop. What you get for your money technically isn't an emulator running a ROM of the original game, though that might have been better. Instead, Capcom saw fit to have the games retooled for mobile. And because I'm a nice guy, let's talk about the positives of that. It means things like games slow down because of too many objects on the screen and sprite flicker are a non-issue. In all 6 games, you can cycle through your weapons with a button, like you can in the later games in the series with the L and R buttons on some controllers. Each game also has a random gauntlet of bosses, allowing you to fight through all the robot masters from that game with all the available weapons to get a high score and see how long you can last. Enemies don't respawn if you walk away and come back on the same screen either, which is kinda nice. And lastly, each game has a normal and hard difficulty setting. Normal mode gives you infinite lives, while hard allocates the standard 2 lives and game overs. I'm actually a fan of the infinite lives bit, but it is kinda dumb that you can still find and earn extra lives on normal mode that don't actually do anything. I'll admit, these are decent additions, but if something felt off as you watch this video, you're not wrong. Yes, Mega Man is moving like he's covered in molasses and rolled around in epoxy. Mega Man has been slowed down. At first I thought this was an issue with my phone and the games. Since they're not emulated, games aren't hindered by, say, an emulated NES's clock speed or a refresh rate of a screen or anything like that, and the games aren't just running in a subpar frame rate as it looks like they're doing. If they were, things would still occur at the same time as they should in the original NES games. No matter how many frames you cram into a second, that second still happens at the same point in time. Mega Man feels like he's moving slower because he actually is. Those buster shots are going slower, those Mets are moving slower, and Quickman's lasers are anything but quick. This is what people have been complaining about with these ports. It's one thing to adjust a game for the platform, but Capcom's done much more than that for the old Blue Bomber this time. After all, it's not that the iPhone or Android devices for years haven't been capable of running NES games. My iPad Mini 2 is a great emulation machine on the go, and all the Mega Man games run just fine on it. And I could use a Bluetooth controller with it as well, something that's not actually possible in these new Mega Man games. Capcom has retimed, slowed down, messed up, however you want to put it, these Mega Man games with the intention of making it better for the mobile platform. I have to admit, the adjusted speed does make the game easier in a way, because you don't have to react as quickly as you had to in things in the original, so if you're not very good at Mega Man, kinda like I am, this might actually be a good thing. But they didn't have to slow down everything in order to make that work. If that was the case, they wouldn't have had to slow down the animations of things in the background. Check this out. Let's look at the normal speed of the mobile game next to Mega Man Legacy Collection on the PlayStation 4. You can see that things that flash or move in the backgrounds are also slowed down in the mobile version. Instead of just retiming enemies and actions and max movement and jump speed, Capcom actually makes the games run slower for this. There is a high speed mode which speeds the game up and brings it a little bit closer to the original NES game, but it's still off. It is a lot smoother than the normal speed option, the animations and backgrounds get a little bit better, and things occur much more like they should in the original games. If you can get around everything else we'll talk about in this review, high speed mode is probably going to be the go-to mode for you. While I was working on this review, Capcom updated all 6 of the games to include a new speed option as well. When you crank Mega Man up to Turbo, you get a lot faster and smoother action than you did on high speed mode. But now it's almost too fast, with bullets and enemies moving what feels like a little bit faster than the NES versions. When people said they wanted something more accurate to the originals, Turbo mode isn't what they had in mind. It does serve to make the games significantly harder, but you can notice that none of the game speeds actually make it really feel that much smoother. Everything has a sort of weird hitch in it animation-wise. I'd avoid turbo mode personally. High speed is close enough for me to accept what it is, but even then it isn't the same as the NES originals, which really should have just been what Capcom went with in the first place. If you've been watching Mobility for a while, you know I'm a proponent of touchscreen controls. When they're done right, you can get some excellent games. It isn't done well for Mega Man. Not to beat a dead Centaur Man, but how Mega Man feels when playing is almost burned into everyone who grew up with an NES's DNA. And with a real controller, you don't have to look for a button to make sure you're actually hitting it. You can rock the D-pad any way you'd like for precision, moving forward and backward quickly because your thumbs know where to land. Jumping on a ladder? Easy. Just roll your thumb to the top key on the D-pad so you don't mess up your forward momentum while trying to grab on. None of this works as well in the mobile port. Of course, yeah, there's no tactile feedback, but it also means that it's hard to roll the shoot and jump buttons with your thumb like you would on a real controller. And though you have some different layouts for buttons in the options, there are no options to resize the controls. But my biggest gripe with the touchscreen controls is really the left D-pad button. If you need to turn around to shoot an enemy quickly or adjust Mega Man's movement, you have to make sure you hit that button dead on, because to the left and the edge of the screen of that button won't register as actually being hit. The touchscreen area of the controls are exactly where the buttons are on the screen, and if you can't hit that left button because of the giant ugly design in the middle of the D-pad, or because you reach a little bit too far, you'll find yourself taking hits and missing jumps. If Capcom added a little more play to where your finger could land to hit a button on that D-pad, that would actually make this kinda decent, but both turning around and trying to hit up to get on a ladder are both more frustrating than they should be, and unfortunately it's not something that I could get used to as I played these games. There are some mobile features added to these games, such as in Mega Man's 4, 5, and 6. Mega Man's Buster gun will charge automatically, though he doesn't glow like he should, and he just has this energy bar at the bottom of the screen to indicate its power. You can turn this option off to allow you to hold the button down to charge it manually, though I admit I started to kinda like the auto charge shot in some situations. There's also an option for auto attack, which allows Mega Man to keep firing his weapon as long as the button is held down, rather than just by tapping it. This really wasn't that bad either, but it is good that you can disable both options if you want. These mobile Mega Man games come at a time when we really didn't need another re-release of the 6 original Mega Man games. Mega Man Legacy Collection, a fantastic port, is available on a ton of platforms, all offering real controller support, extra goodies, and even offers a more authentic experience to the NES originals. The mobile versions add infinite lives and a boss rush mode, of course, on the other hand, as well as a kind of inaccurate representation of some of the games. Mega Man 6 to me seems to be the biggest offender. There's no transitions to new screens. They've changed the Roman numeral to the actual number 6 in the menu, and they've removed the parallax scrolling in Tomahawk Man's stage. And in Plant Man's level, the grasshoppers are not obscured by the grass, and the fish robots are the wrong color. Now maybe that's trivial, but it further communicates a sort of careless effort that went into preserving and porting these games. By allowing you to use an MFI or other Bluetooth controller, these games could have been substantially improved. And when set on high speed mode, they could have been almost passable with a controller. Capcom should have taken other considerations when making the mobile game's controls. It's not like this is their first go at Mega Man on a touchscreen device after all. Mega Man X was released on phones in 2011, so a good while ago, and it isn't perfect. It suffers from some of the similar issues as these new ports of the originals, but it makes many more noble efforts to work as a mobile game. For one, the game's graphics have been changed to remove the sharp SNES pixel look. It almost looks as they were ran through some sort of weird scaling filter. I'm not as offended by it as others, but I do prefer the original game's graphics. There's also zoom options allowing you to bring the field closer to X, giving the game a little bit of a different feel. I actually really like this, but you can zoom it out to be closer to the original if you'd like. The game will also have X automatically grab onto ladders, which is a feature desperately needed in these new ports, and it can be disabled if you don't like it. The auto charge and auto attack functions are identical in the new ports as well, but X actually glows when charging his Buster. Mega Man X is a much stronger mobile port than the original NES game's new version, despite it being years older at this point. While it still has a bit of an issue with the D-pad being a little too precise, Mega Man X is a little bit more of a forgiving game in itself anyway. It's more expensive to buy and download this game, and it stupidly allows you to buy all the weapons and capsule upgrades via microtransactions, but it's a much more pleasant experience for a mobile Mega Man than these new ones. And I think that's saying something. As a big proponent of mobile smart device gaming as I am, I think it's best situated for experiences built around it. While Sonic the Hedgehog is a notable exception to that rule, they really managed to nail the touchscreen controls there, but Mega Man on the go is not something people were clamoring for. Capcom could have, and I think they should have, made a new Mega Man game built from the ground up for a touchscreen. Instead, they banked on the nostalgia of the original Mega Man games and released subpar cash grabs that fail to impress. If you're looking to get your Mega Man fix on the go, you're better off with Legacy Collection on the 3DS, or maybe just grabbing one of the original Game Boy games and enjoying the last time classic Mega Man on the go was any fun at all.